Michelle Hahn, welcome to Enter the Unknown.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining me and talking about all things spirituality and meditation and body work. You are a decade-long practitioner in a couple of different forms. Ido Rolf School, you're a Rolfer, massage therapist. And you and I had not previously been friends in life, but kind of became connected in a way where I feel like in society, circles are widening and widening, but then they're also getting tighter and tighter. And like the Venn diagram of life has people with similar backgrounds kind of crossing paths. And so you and I had some similar friends through the Rolfing School in Colorado. Shout out to Ben Dowson, friend Rolfer.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit just about kind of your history and where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in New Jersey, so the East Coast, and that's where I got into massage therapy right out of high school. I was super interested in working with the body in some form, and there was a local massage place that had opened, and so went there. And then after massage, I was kind of looking for something deeper, like working with people's root causes of their issues. And so I heard about Rolfing when I had moved out to California, and kind of felt really interested in that. And I had some events happen in California that led me back to New Jersey to save some money for the Rolf Institute. And then that's when I moved out to Colorado, went to the Rolf Institute and spent 4 years out there, learning a lot about movement as well and different types of movement and how it complemented the Rolfing work, the structural work. And then I kind of got interested in like investing in my practice and investing into a community. And I knew I wanted to go back to the East Coast. So came back to Maine, where my sister is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have more extended family in Maine, or people still in New Jersey? Have they bounced around?
Yeah. Since like 6 years ago, my parents retired in South Carolina. But I still have my extended family in Jersey, and then my older sister's here. My little sister's in Maryland. My brother's in South Carolina. So we're all kind of scattered on the East Coast.
Yeah, East Coast. That's great. And so what drew you to California in the first place?
California. Well, my older sister
Yeah.
lived there at the time, and I was getting into surfing because I was a lifeguard in the Jersey Shore, and where we like dabbled a little bit in surfing. And she was like, if you want to really get into surfing, you got to move out west.
Yeah.
Santa Cruz. That's like where it's happening.
Yeah, you got to go.
So, I was like 21 at the time, maybe 22, and just kind of tired of my like small hometown in Jersey and like really wanting to get out and explore a different culture almost. It felt like a totally different culture out west.
Yeah.
And it was my sister kind of egging me on to like, challenge myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Explore surfing and
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to step beyond the familiar sometimes and engage in some adventure when you want to try something new like that. It's classic, the West Coast call for the East Coast kid. So many people have gone down that path, myself included. You get to find your like real independence when you kind of travel across country for the first time. It's amazing that we live where we do in North America and the United States, where we have this bi-coastal kind of opportunity. It's as if we were landlocked between two oceans kind of thing. And I find that the demographics are so different.
They're so different.
And I remember the first time I went to California, actually, having grown up on the coast of Maine myself, and then going up to the southern coast of California, it just seemed like a different world. And the people and the way they just have like an often brightness to them, I would say. I have like a kind of a hypothesis about like the East Coast. And, the East Coast tends to be not politically conservative, but just the people I feel are a little more conservative, not quite as gregarious and outgoing. And they're certainly like loving and welcoming and generous, but they don't have that like heart opening and like wide eyed and like bright expression. And my theory is that like it has a lot to do with honestly just like sunlight and latitude,
or the skies. It just
and
feels
open
like the
skies
are bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that like people who end up being just indoors a lot more
Yeah.
tend to have less of that like outgoing kind of exuberance and like outward nature, and whether they're introverted or not, it's like something about like the container of the forests. And I had a friend or a friend of a friend perhaps out west once who said that going to the East Coast, they don't like it because they feel claustrophobic because of all the trees everywhere, right? And like you're driving down the road and like you can't see very far.
Yeah.
And so now my latest bro science is that I think people who grow up on the East Coast or people who spend a lot of time in kind of these environments and more like the environmental topographical environment, have something change. I wonder if there's science behind this. I'd love to learn. Like within the aperture of their eye, because when you're out west, you can just see a lot further all the time. You're looking mountainous views, you're looking down valleys, you could maybe spend a lot more time at the ocean. In the ocean, what do you really look at? You're not necessarily focusing at something. It's kind of that like meditation of like looking deeply into nothing.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
But out west, you're like looking far into a valley or looking far into a mountain or looking down or something. So on the East Coast, you don't get that as much. And so here's my theory, right? Is that people could be less open-minded because they don't have as much like big sky vision. They don't have that like opening of the aperture of life. And with that comes that like exuberance and like seeing a lot and gaining a lot. And
yeah,
I know so many people who have done a very similar life path of where they grew up on the East Coast, go out west to like sow their wild oats. Does that saying even come from? I'd love to know what that means. Like, why do we say that? And then end up kind of like returning home as like, prodigal son or daughter or whatever. It's like you have to have the experience and go out there. And many people stay. My brother-in-law and his brother live out there too. And what an amazing experience that I hope everybody gets to.
Yeah, I very much felt like I had to go as far away from home as I could to just experience like what else is out there and gain that just life experience. And then eventually I slowly worked my way back. And it's funny what you said about the open-mindedness and open spaces and maybe a little more claustrophobic and somewhere like the East Coast. It reminds me of in the Rolfing Institute, they would talk a lot about cultures and how they hold their bodies. And like people in the cities, maybe they're more constricted or like less this like contralateral movement in their walk. And versus people maybe who live out in the country, they like kind of hold themselves a little more upright, like a little more spacious.
Yeah.
We're prone to take up space. So it's super interesting to look into like
so not just the emotional expressiveness and how you interact with people and communicate, not just perhaps the mental part of like being open-minded through the aperture of your eyes, but also like the physicality, your gait and how you walk could be changed. Because you're, maybe leaning back and looking out and looking up more. Wow, there's got to be some good science out there behind that. If not, let's get some studies going. I will volunteer for any peer review for that one. That's for sure. I don't know how they do that. And they like follow you around while you look at things or something.
There's got to be some studies out there. I got to reach out to my instructor. He was always laying the facts out. Like
So you've always been interested in movement. And I know you were part of APECO in Colorado, which I'm like loosely aware of, having done some retreats for them. But tell me everything about APECO and your involvement with that.
Oh, it was so cool. I'm so grateful to have found myself there. I think I heard about them through like Instagram or something. They're a movement school, and they're the two guys who own the place. They went out to Israel and studied the Ido Portal method. So it's all founded by this guy Ido Portal out in Israel, who became famous from training this boxer. And he studies all types of movement, like capoeira, gymnastics, yoga, dance, CrossFit, like all that stuff. And from what I understood from it, it seemed that he kind of pulled what he felt was most important, for things like longevity and like just becoming like the best human, with our coordination or balance. So these guys studied out there, opened this gym out in Boulder, and it was great. We did a lot with exploring just those things like balance, coordination, partner work, a lot of joint strength, spine mobility, and it just complemented the bodywork I was learning about at the time so well.
Yeah. And so now you do workshops of your own for movement?
Yeah. I've hosted Friday nights for like the last 3 months here, just trying to find my own community of movers and people who are curious and exploring and learning.
Okay.
I'm taking a little hiatus for the next couple of months, but in search for a new studio space with a little more availability. Because I just find it's such important work to do.
Yeah.
Especially someone, chronic pain, seeking for better alignment, and just like I said, it just complements the Rolfing stuff so well. It's a lot of what I've learned there I give people as like homework. So I just always wanted to create a space where we can just explore that homework.
Yeah. Well, tell me more about those workshops and like what exactly you do. Is it the Ido Portal method? Is it your own fusion? Is it dance? Is it acro yoga?
Yeah, I'd say it's my own fusion. I haven't been trained by Ido, but I've taken what I've learned from APECO, and I've taken what I've learned from Rolf movement courses that I've taken, and also I did the yoga and training a couple years back. So I've just kind of formulated we start with a good warm up, good spine mobility, joint mobility stuff. And then we'll do some like organic strength, partner work. We're using like body weight, a lot of balance, coordination work with like a tennis ball or just different weight transferring games with a partner. And then I do like to incorporate some dance stuff at the end. Yeah.
That was my next question. Is it like a fitness class? Is it dance? Got music the whole time?
Yeah, there's music the whole time.
Music the whole time?
Keep the vibes good, and rhythm and whatever you're doing. And then I like to teach like maybe 1 or 2 like movements to practice in like a open system flow. So these movements might derive from like maybe capoeira or something looks similar to that. And then we'll break down that movement until it feels comfortable. And then it's kind of like, okay, here's like a minute to just keep moving and try that movement. Like throw in that one movement we learned whenever you can, whenever it feels right. So it can be very vulnerable for people.
Oh, I bet.
At first.
But
for me, like the biggest thing in that whole movement school was just feeling confident moving in front of people in these different ways. So it was like, I just learned this weird new coordination that I'm definitely not good at, but here I'm going to do it and people are going to watch me. And
on display.
But then like you'd be on the other side watching somebody else and realize, oh, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So it could be, really vulnerable for people to move in these new ways in front of people and be witness.
Yeah.
But for me in that process, when I did that for the first couple of years, it was very vulnerable, but I also found a lot of empowerment and like confidence from it. Yeah. And now I love dancing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So,
same, me too.
Yeah.
It's one of my absolute favorite states of flow is to be deeply immersed into dance, and it almost saddens me for people who can't or don't, just because of that like introspective fear and, I don't want to look bad and ego and all the things that are tied to it. And what's the classic cliche of like dance as if no one is watching kind of thing, because then we all can, right? It's like, if you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, you can sing, right? And like a lot of people don't feel that or like have that kind of self-empowerment. So it's great that you have these workshops. You can kind of like coach and guide people through that movement. And sometimes I find that like the funkier you are or like the more awkward and weird you are, like almost easier it is, It's like, I don't want people to laugh at me. But then if people are like laughing at you with you, it's better, it's more fun, it's like
totally
lightens the vibe and allows everybody to like get deeper into that,
totally.
I always like to ask people about like flow state and like if there are any your passions that like really get you into flow, or like where is your favorite place to find flow?
My favorite place to find flow would probably be on the dance floor, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. All right.
Yeah, even if it's just like bopping to like some house music or something.
Yeah.
But just kind of feeling the rhythm and feeling, you know, the music. That's the best way for me to kind of get into flow. Yeah.
Lose yourself and
get
into that meditative state where nothing else exists.
Yeah. Even in the car, just listening to music. You know, something about music is an easy way for me to access that flow.
I wonder, I think about how a lot of people tend to dance, right? And it's like at night, at a concert, and it's a party, the alcohol, and it takes a lot of people that like additional influence to imbibe to like loosen enough to get the liquid courage to actually get on the dance floor and move around, kind of thing. And I remember the first couple of times I went to like an ecstatic dance in Maui, I think was the first one I went to. Maybe I went to one in Denver before, but it was like,
and those are like during the
daytime, and it's strict, no alcohol, no shoes,
no talking,
a lot of them are very different, and sometimes you're like not allowed to talk, kind of thing. And so it can be very like eye connection, movement with physical connection, and everybody just wiling out. And there's something about that energy as well, like flow is a very personalized, focused activity, experience, practice. But then when many people are engaging in flow at the same time, especially with music, which is so just like vibrational, and you can feel it, it's got that like tangible effect. And it's like, okay, we're not talking, but we're all feeling literally the same thing. And then you have your internalized feelings of like happiness or excitement or flow, or perhaps some nerves and some fear, as well as like being on display and other people. It's another one of those elements of life that I really wish for like all people to experience more. Yeah. And, I think about like my family members maybe, or just other people that I've crossed paths with, like that like don't have that essentially. And I almost wish there was like a switch I could like flip for them. It's like, what you need? Just a good night of dancing.
I know.
Just like get sweaty and get weird and just
feel the rhythm move through you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. What you don't need is like another 12 beers kind of thing.
Yeah. I know. I think a helpful way might be to like start slow in some way, like maybe just even going to just witness, like being a witness, maybe not participating.
Yeah.
Kind of easier way into that world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some weird people at ecstatic dances.
Yeah.
So I think immediately, like some of the people I think of, they wouldn't be caught dead at a place like that, like no way. It's way too woo-woo and too hippie and too funky kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you love movement, clearly, flow state, dance. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I have to say, from firsthand experience, you're an incredibly talented bodywork practitioner.
Thank you.
And tell me a little bit more about like Rolfing and just kind of how your daily practice like influences your life.
Yeah. So Rolfing was great because it was, it's meant to be like less on your body as a practitioner. So I think a lot of Rolfing, there's so many aspects to it. There's like the structural piece, and then there's like the embodiment piece. And I think a lot of people come in with, this pain or discomfort, and they show such a significant piece of like a lack of embodiment. Like they're like not in their bodies.
Yeah.
And, I work with a lot of people who work at a desk all day. And so they're just like in their head so much of the day. And that when we go on to like a session 2 in the Rolfing 10 series where it's like all about the feet and the legs, they're like, oh my God, I had no idea I had like these bones in my foot, or like, wow, I had no idea that part of my leg like felt that way.
Yeah.
And so I think with this like disembodiment, there comes maybe like contraction because like there's got to be some way that this person's going to like keep their head up, you
Mhm,
know?
mhm.
So these bigger muscles maybe compensate. And so, yeah, I've just kind of come to realize like a lot of people need this like embodiment piece.
Mhm.
Hence my name, Full Embodiment Rolfing.
That's right. Full embodiment Rolfing.
And I feel like one of the ways in which someone can find embodiment is like through movement, through
Mhm.
moving their spine, through like maybe slowing down a certain movement and getting curious about what sensations they feel. Kind of waking up that like somatic brain, that movement brain. And yeah, it's been like really life changing for a lot of people. And it's super interesting.
Yeah. I'd like to know more about the schooling and Rolfing and, my like firsthand experience with it. I've done 110 series a few years ago.
Mhm.
I know a little bit about how it differentiates from like massage, but
Mhm.
maybe like explain the basics of Rolfing and what it is.
Yeah. So it's different from massage, but it's similar in a way that we use like myofascial release, like
Mhm.
as one of the techniques to manipulate fascia. So the big thing about Rolfing is you're working with this fascial web, which is exactly that. It's like a web that travels throughout your whole body, and it's essentially holds you up and separates muscles, kind of allows muscles to glide over one another. It allows for range of motion. It's also like a perceptual organ, so it
Mhm.
has a lot of nerve receptors and that kind of respond to like stress or being imbalanced. So in Rolfing, you're working with this fascial network to create balance in the body, more awareness, body awareness,
Mhm.
and ultimately affecting how people are standing and walking. So, and you do so through this like 10 series.
Mhm.
And the first 3 sessions are, known to be more of superficial work. So you're working with the fascia more closer to the surface, kind of creating this sense of space or this like kind of loosening the stocking of tissue around your body.
Mhm.
Um, so that you can make deeper changes once you get to the deeper fascial lines.
Stokes Picks are the world's first organically flavored nicotine toothpicks. Produced in the great state of Maine from American white birch wood, which is sustainably harvested and grown in the great state of Maine. They have incredible flavors: vanilla mint, lemon ginger, cinnamon clove, and absinthe. And if you enter the promo code Enter the Unknown, you'll receive 20% off your order at stokespicks.com.
Sessions 4 to 7. That's kind of really where you influence like the posture and how you're sitting, how you're standing.
Mm.
And then the last 3 sessions of the 10, they're integration sessions.
Mhm.
So you do a little more movement, a little more like refining someone's movement,
Mhm.
kind of helping them become more online, more mindful of how they're moving.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah.
Interesting. I've always explained it to people as, not knowing it very well, having only done the 110 series myself many years ago, and people who don't know a lot about body work or body mechanics. I always say it's not fun massage.
Yeah.
It's usually not relaxing. It's very active. You're like a participant
Yeah.
in the body work for sure. And the actual like strokes and kneading motions, I always think of it as like pulling muscle away from the bone, and that's like breaking up those fascia like fibers, kind of, as you said.
Yeah.
And that's my like easy way of explaining it to people.
That's a pretty good way of explaining
It's
it.
okay, kind of like trying to break it down. Like, I think you would really enjoy it because I don't lead with it's not fun. I don't lead with that part, but I love that you have a picture here. If I could pull it down.
Oh yeah,
This is Ida herself.
Uh-huh.
Kind of hold it for the camera. 1896 to 1979. There she is.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like my great grandma who passed. Bless her. And so, when did she create the method, and like when did the school kind of come to fruition?
Oh, I am not the best with dates, but
The history pop quiz.
like the 60s.
Okay.
Is when she really was working with like craniosacralists and
Yeah.
different practitioners out in like Big Sur.
Yep.
I can't remember when the school was born, but it's it's a fairly new method,
Right. But still 50 years established or something like that. Interesting.
The school started, it must have been sometime in the 60s.
Yeah. And there's only the one school? Is that right?
There's the one Ido Rolf school in Boulder.
In
and
Boulder,
then there's
Colorado.
a couple schools out in Europe.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
And then there's like branches. There's other schools that have opened up from former Rolfers. There's one in Maine. Oh, cool. Tom Myers.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not sure when that school opened, but he teaches anatomy trains, structural integration.
Yes, anatomy trains. I've heard of this actually.
Yeah. So it's
structural integration.
Slightly different, but similar vein.
Yeah.
So
she was German?
She was a German woman, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome. From what I've heard, tough cook.
Yeah. My great grandmother, she lived to be 106. She was German too.
Yeah.
So she kind of looks like her. Shout out to Gima.
Shout out to German woman.
Shout out to the Gimas. Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's cool. She really kind of brought the attention to the fascial network and like, what is this? Like, why are we disregarding this in dissections? And, so she really brought the spotlight to the fascial world, and we're still learning about it too today. And different ways to manipulate it and influence it. And it's not always through intense, crazy pressure. There's a lot you can do with like perception and like imagination, and how that can influence the quality of fascia and tissues. And so that's kind of where like Rolf movement comes into play, a separate training where it's essentially very mindful movement, and how that too can influence pain and how you hold how you hold yourself and how you move. Yeah.
It's really interesting how much science there is behind all of this, behind movement and body mechanics and things like as simple as massage or even Chinese medicine with acupuncture and Rolfing and, multitude of different like exercise techniques, yoga that are so good for you.
Yeah.
But none of it's considered healthcare.
Yeah.
None of it falls within the classic framework of like, this is what you do to take care of your body. It's so unfortunate. Like, modern medicine is almost it's sick care. It's like you don't go to the hospital or the doctor unless there's something wrong with you. And rather than treating the cause, we so often treat the symptoms, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like this idea is like too simple.
Yeah.
It's not complicated.
Get up and move around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get off your butt and move around.
Move your spine in all the ways it can move, if you want to help your back pain. It's like, no, that sounds too simple.
One of my favorite follows is Found to My Fitness, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Do you follow her?
That sounds familiar, actually, Rhonda Patrick. Yeah, she's
been gaining a lot of popularity.
Okay.
She's been on like Joe Rogan a few times, and she's been on Andrew Huberman recently. And one of her things that she coined, exercise snacks. So there's some kind of recent study that like short bouts of vigorous movement, even 3 minutes at a time, 3 minutes a day, can lower your all-cause mortality by up to 40%. And so 9 minutes a day of like getting up off your butt. And what was the example she used? Something like if you do 10 body weight squats. Every like 45 minutes, you get that kind of ramp up, that metabolic effect. And so all the people in my life who like need things like that, I've been trying to like coach my mom a little bit, like exercise snacks, mom, like just get after it a little bit. I got her Apple Watch for Christmas. And how far did you walk today, mom? And now she kind of dreads it. She's like, don't ask me how far I walked.
Yeah, that's the hard part, is like helping people find the joy in those things.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to keep them going for it. I always say like, okay, do you want like one or like three things to play with? Because it's all about just finding the things that like kind of light you up a little bit that you like. Then you're going to do that thing. If it's something that you don't really connect with, or you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, little exercise snacks. Like I just tell people to set your timer for like a minute and just shake your body for like a minute.
Shakes, or like the qigong slaps. I've been doing that a little bit lately as part of my morning practice.
Yeah,
mixing it up.
It just helps rev up the engine, you know.
Another thing I saw recently was really interesting. It's about kind of like rewiring the brain. And I first started doing it because I was following the knees over toes guy, the knees over toes method. And one of the things he recommended is walking backwards.
Yeah.
And so I've got a ton of injuries, as you know, bad knees and bad back. And so I've been doing this walking backwards thing. And then recently it kind of came across my radar that like walking backwards is actually really good for your brain, and how it just readjusts your visual patterns and makes everything backwards essentially. So now part of my morning daily practice is I get up and I have my beautiful puppy and we go for an early morning walk before the sun's even up typically. And I start by walking backwards.
You both are walking backwards, the dog too?
No, he's loose. He's running in the woods and chasing deer and eating dead things. But I'll walk up the driveway and we have a little trail, and I'll go from the house to the trail backwards. It takes like 3 or 4 minutes.
That's
kind of
great.
thing. Yeah, it's part of my little practice, and it feels so good. And something it really sets the tone too. And it's not quite flow state because I don't have to like try that hard. But what it does for me mentally is so cathartic. It like kicks this morning meditation thoughtfulness right into gear. And there's a specific spot as I walk. My driveway has a little hill, and as I get up it, I start to get a little view, and I live on a lake, and so I can see the water. And I'm always about the same time of day too. And it's like there's daylight, but it's pre-dawn. And so I have this like moment of gratitude as I'm walking backwards, like engaging into my daily flow. It's a spiritual thing.
And I imagine you have to be pretty in your body too, like walking backwards.
Definitely. Especially when there's snow.
Yeah.
I haven't fallen down yet, knock on wood. But I slipped. I almost packed it one time for sure. Icy on the driveway.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Meditation is such an important part of life. And I'd like to meditate more than I do. I used to have a good practice and I don't anymore. But I'm excited to hear about your recent journey on a Vipassana retreat. So you did a 10-day silent meditation.
Yes.
I've done a couple different yoga retreats. I had like a Babaji Kriya initiation at one point. And I did a Vipassana as well when I lived in Maui, but not nearly as strict as what you were in. So I'm excited to hear all about where you went and what it was like and what happened.
Yeah, it was really cool. The Vipassana Dharma Center in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So it was like 3 hours from here.
Shout out to the Dharma Center.
Yeah. Great place. I think it was the OG spot that opened, I think in the 90s.
Okay.
Maybe. I could be wrong again. But
30-year history.
Yeah, and it's totally donation based, which is amazing. The whole idea behind it is like they want it to be available for anybody.
So the Dharma Institute's a nonprofit. That's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and the food there is amazing. Vegetarian, Indian cuisine. Everyone that works there is just on volunteer. 10 days in silence and learning this technique. This Buddhist technique of Vipassana, of essentially just sitting in stillness and observing your body and sensations, and with this knowing and understanding of like the law of nature that everything is in constant change, so nothing's permanent. So you practice for a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you're learning this technique, Vipassana, where you're essentially sitting for an hour at a time in stillness, eyes closed, and you're observing your body, different parts of your body and sensations that are there, and kind of just watching and feeling them come up and then go away, come up again, go away. And the whole idea is to practice this with non-attachment. So you're neither craving for like that good sensation, and you're also not being like averted from the like uncomfortable sensations. You're just objectively observing, which sounds easier said than done.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Day 1, 2, no big deal. You get into day 3, 4, 5, and it gets a little dark.
Well, it was interesting. Like day 1 and 2, you're just given this meditation to just observe the breath going in and out of your nose. So you're just like focusing just on this triangle of your face. So you're sitting for an hour and you're just observing this area here. Like, what do you notice? Do you notice a contraction, relaxing, coolness, heat? And so you really start to hone your attention in to like that specific point, and you practice that for 2 days. I think it was like 2 or 3 days. And on the second day was one of the hardest days for me. Actually, I was like, my head was hurting. You have no books, no notebooks, no phone,
no books.
Yeah, nothing. Like no distractions.
Journaling?
No journaling.
No journaling.
Yeah.
Oh,
Day 1, they you give them all your
give them all your stuff.
Yeah. And so you're kind of depriving yourself from all these distractions. And so your head kind of hurts and your body aches because you're like putting your mind in this prison.
Yeah.
It's total
slightly
detox.
Torturous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So day 2, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? This sucks.
Yeah.
And mind you, the first night I got there was a mouse in my room.
Oh gosh.
The night.
Scurrying around.
And I don't know. I like have a history of rodents in our house and stuff like that. So I was like, of course, what are the chances?
Yeah, you called it in.
I'm being tested right now.
Yeah, you called it in. It's your thing.
And I couldn't talk to anyone about it because you can't talk to anyone there.
Right.
But there were these 2 managers there that you can whisper to about logistics and stuff. So I got my room switched into a very small room, and it was fine. But everyone has their own rooms, which is kind of really nice. So day 2, you're kind of really sinking into this new reality you're into for the next 8 days.
So is there coaching? Are there yogis? Are you being spoken to?
Yeah. So every day there's 3 group sittings for about an hour, I think maybe an hour and a half each. And there are 3 teachers up there. So let's see. You're not really being spoken to. Well,
I think of
I have to remember
guided meditations, kind of, where
Yeah.
there's someone coaching you into the meditation a little bit. And so I wonder, with these practices, you're being taught, you're at the Dharma Institute,
Right.
but do they give you pamphlets before? Here's the itinerary for today.
Yeah.
Everyone comes into the room at this time and sits, but there isn't someone sitting on a stage
Right.
saying, now everyone breathe through your left nostril, now breathe through your right. There's none of that.
There is. So there's recordings from this guy Goenka in India.
Okay.
The one who kind of started this whole thing.
The original Vipassana.
Yeah. And so he guides you through these meditations.
Okay.
So at least for the first couple ones. So for the first day, he guides you through this meditation, gives you this technique to practice. And every evening you get to watch one of his videos, one of his Dharma talks, where he talks about the technique and some of Buddha's teachings and stories, and kind of gives you a lot to think about and kind of meditate on. Which those videos were everything. It's yes, we get to engage in this thing.
Yeah, it's so entertaining. You're
cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Visual stimulation.
Yeah, exactly. So you had 3 of those group sittings a day, and then in between those group sittings you were kind of expected to practice in your room, practice in the common spaces, and then you had breakfast and lunch. You had 2 or 3 breaks where you can walk around outside. There were trails outside. Yeah, and then day 4 is when they taught the Vipassana technique. So it was a little more strict. It was a little more full body. And he talks you through from his recording. To sit either. I sat on a chair. People can sit on the floor. Indian style or on their knees. And you start just by feeling your breath. And then you bring all of your attention to the top of your head. Notice any sensations, good or bad, and just observe. And then slowly, little by little, you kind of move to your face. Then you just observe your shoulders. You just observe this part of your arm, your forearm, your hands, and you slowly make your way through the whole body in total stillness. And I mean, you can move if you're in pain, but it's really interesting to just experience like all of these pains come up, and without moving, you're just kind of breathing through it and like trying not to have a reaction to it. And then you feel them literally just dissolve.
Yeah.
Like it just goes away. And then it's like, oh my God. Okay. And then you just keep moving, through the body. And you do this down to the feet, and then you come back up, and then after an hour, you stand up. And for me, the first time practicing this, I stood up and I felt like I was walking back to the room, and I felt like I had shed like 20 pounds. Like I felt so light, and my whole body was just like a noodle.
Yeah.
And I was walking, I was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. I don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
And then there was just like this wave of emotion that just like came up out of me. And it feels very vulnerable to say, but I was just like started crying. And just like, it was just a really
what a release.
Powerful release.
Yeah.
And then, since then I was
there
wow.
like a trigger, a memory that like, was there a catalyst for the waterworks and the crying, or was it just like the physicality of it and then whoosh,
like there wasn't
amazing.
Like an image or anything, like a memory that came to my mind. I was just like, whoa, I'm feeling this, and then whoa, I'm feeling all of this, because now I've shed all of that, whatever that was.
Yeah. Decades of pent up cortisol.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So it was really cool. And everyone's experience was so different. I came to find out after the whole thing, when we could talk, like a lot of people had visuals, during the meditations. I had some wild experience where it felt like my cranium was being stretched out, just the wild things that the mind can do. And the cool thing about the retreat too is you got like 5 minutes to like talk to the instructors about like ask them a question or whatever, only for that 5 minutes, but they would always kind of encourage you to just like don't get attached to those things. Oh, you felt your face stretching, like okay, well just go back to your body, go back to your breath,
observe it and kind of move on.
Even with dreams, like oh, these dreams, they're just watch it like a movie. Like don't attach yourself too much to it, because then there's that like craving, or there's that like form of attachment to it. So and like just having all these experiences and not being able to talk to anyone about it, like really like not acting in those attachments was like a whole different experience, but it was really cool.
So throughout the 10 days, did it get harder and harder and harder? Was it cumulative, or was
like
it
up and down,
kind of roller coaster up and down? Huh?
I think there was definitely a moment every day when I was like, I could leave.
I've had enough. Like you're ready to wave the white flag and say like, check please. Yeah, I bet.
But they talk about it in the beginning. They're like, okay, like you've signed so many papers saying you're going to stay for the 10 days. Understand that this is like a brain surgery in a way. Like you're detoxing. Like we made like this insertion. Like we need time for the healing. And so it just felt like it would have been incomplete if I left.
Yeah.
So, I think it was day 6 was also one of those days where I was like, screw this. I'm like, we didn't get dinner either. So I was like, I'm tired of eating a banana for dinner.
Yeah. A little added fasting will add to the cortisol. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The healing is so powerful. I have 2 things that, one, I'm curious about like the other people. and interaction. It's like similar to ecstatic dance, like we talked about, and there's no talking, but there's a lot of like physical body language, eye contact. And so when you're seeing people, you see the same people day after day. And does it turn into kind of like a head nod, like, hey, Kelly, like, what's up? Or is it just more like
kind of like not even interacting in that way?
You're like, nope, don't look at me.
Yeah,
like that.
Not a lot of eye contact going on. Like, they really encourage you to just be in your own world. Like, it's like isolating yourself, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's the point. Yeah.
And I like tried maybe to make a little eye contact, but like people were pretty in their own worlds.
Yeah.
We did have one moment though on a hike on one of the trails, and I saw a couple people like looking up at the trees, and I was like, what's up there? And I look up there, and there was, I think it was like a porcupine.
Oh, okay.
Or some kind of animal like
wildlife sighting. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were all just like,
enraptured with it again. The visual stimulation is so entertaining. A wild animal. Yeah, I can't imagine.
Like nonverbal communication of like,
Gosh, the emotional waterworks, the tears and the crying, you know. I learned recently, I like to share with people a lot, perhaps you know, that like you can actually release cortisol in your tears. When you cry, cortisol actually comes out through the tear ducts. So I think it's
that's so cool,
powerful. And the way you feel after a good cry, it's like it's really hard. And sometimes, you know, depending on the scenario, certainly as a man, it's like you might be a little embarrassed kind of thing. Like I grew up in kind of a somewhat classic manhood kind of home where it's like you don't cry. You don't cry as a man. You know, I remember being at like my great grandfather's funeral. My dad was like, stop crying. We don't cry, you know. I had a cry recently, and there was kind of I had some feelings about my dad in it actually, and so many emotions came out, including like a little bit of embarrassment. I remember saying to my partner, I was like, I'm sorry, like I don't, you know, mean to put you through this too. But then once it's all said and done, you're just just the bliss of it all, like it's over, and maybe blow some snotty tissues or whatever and keep going. Like that to me is like, you know, could like a good cry could be like flow state too,
totally,
right? You know, you're like so immersed in that moment, that emotional trauma, like whatever is happening up here and in here doesn't matter what's going on outside at all.
Just having
I should cry more.
Like, crying is very powerful.
I wonder about like actors and actresses who like make themselves cry. Like I can't do that. Like no way. I couldn't even if I like stab myself or something. Like I don't think I could do it. You know, people who can do that. Like
I feel like I could.
It's really, you can make yourself cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry.
No, I won't.
Don't cry. Don't cry.
Feel bubbling up now.
Yeah, it's going up. Wow. Well, shout out to the Dharma Institute. Amazing. Good work. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's like a big part of your process and your spirituality and kind of coming to fruition in your life here.
Totally. Yeah. I prior to going, I felt like I had a big lack of spirituality, and I dabbled in meditation here and there, but it was like meditation boot camp. And as hard as it was equally, if not more rewarding. And I was just like, I wish everyone I know could do this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's only it's 10 days, but it's also only 10 days.
Yeah.
And just the connection of self that you get there, and just feeling like you've conquered something so challenging is just so rewarding. So
well, it's very inspirational. I'm going to start to practice meditation a little bit more myself. One thing that I always say is you have your 5 fingers of health, or your hand of health. So the 5 fingers are your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. And those 3 are like pretty tied together, but they're not same. They're different. Your physical health, of course. And then the 5th is your financial health. And until we live in a world of free energy and no fiat currency kind of thing, I think that's a major part of everyone's life cycle. And I really find that, like, as with anything in life, if you have too much of one, you don't have enough of another. You kind of like lack in certain places, and finding that balance and that strength in all of them. And I'll find that sometimes like my financial health is doing really well, but like my spiritual emotional health maybe is lacking a little bit more, or then vice versa. When I'm doing that like internal work, meditating more, getting outside more, breath work, being more present, sharing more love, that like the other ones, they start to fall off a little bit. It's hard to find that balance.
It's all about balance.
It's all about balance.
So it's physical, emotional,
mental, spiritual, and the worst one, financial. Yeah. I like that you did pinky. I usually go thumb with financial because it's like the trigger for some reason for me. But
we're working on that.
Maybe year. I should flip it. Maybe I'll flip it into financials, the little finger. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I always like to ask people as we kind of come to conclusion here is about personal, anecdotal pieces of advice or quotes that have really meant something to you. And you told me one that I really like, and that's that you are your own savior.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So that one, I saw it written in the snow during the retreat.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning like, you know, a lot of people are like seeking like the answers like in the external world, right, or, you know, praying to like a god or goddess to like save them. And when the reality of things is like you are responsible for like your experience and, you know, how you allow the world and people to affect you. Mm-hmm. And thus you're responsible for like your miseries, you know, and the things that influence you. And so how you react and respond to them. And so like you are your own savior is like, you're the only one who can do the work to get you to a better place. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No one's going to do the work for you. Mm-hmm. You know, you can have people hold your hand through it, but, yeah, you're the one that everyone has to do their own work. And so that was really, I viscerally experienced that phrase.
Yeah. That's powerful.
That time. And so, yeah.
I appreciate it. It really resonates with me. One of my favorite quotes for a long time. It's like my old Facebook mantra was actually take responsibility for everything in your own life.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you externalize accountability and say, you know, it's not my fault that thing happened. It's because something else happened to me. You know, I was late because of traffic. It's like kind of one of those examples, you know, it's like, well, the traffic was there either way. And so like, whose fault was it, you know? And that like external part is something that I have intertwined with like my own growing spirituality actually, and kind of like prayer a little bit and understanding like what I value in terms of how spiritual alignment like comes my way and things that come to fruition, whether it's like luck or providence or fate or destiny or whatever it is. And, you know, perhaps that like prayer as an example, you can't just pray your problems away, you know, because you're a good person that like, you know, God, the Lord is going to take care of you. And perhaps karmically, eventually, maybe something will happen and will come to fruition and help you out in that way. But in reality, you still have to get up, go out the front door, go to work, make the dinner, whatever it is. And like, no one is going to come save you.
Right.
And I really appreciate that. It like helps everyone become their own champion, you know, the hero of your own story, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I love that. Well, on that, I think it's a wonderful place to end it. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Yeah, this is great. A little fireside chat here. And until next time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.